Now, after 3 weeks of bombing and shelling, the scale of the destruction inside Gaza is becoming clearer. Tens of thousands of Gazans are now homeless and 500,000 people have been without water since the conflict began. Israel and Hamas announced ceasefires at the weekend and Israeli troops are gradually withdrawing. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Johnathan Miller reports from Gaza.
Gaza's government buildings have been pummeled. These the ministries of Finance, Interior and Foreign Affairs. The infrastructure of a future independent Palestinian state. To Gazans, it's evidence that Israel never wanted one. We drove through Gaza City past the wreckage of its 22-day-long bombardment. This was an ambulance. 13 paramedics had been killed in this conflict. Even the dead were not sacred. We saw 2 graveyards, one bombed, the other driven over by tanks. Some of the targeting looked like wanton destruction. I saw the tops of 3 minarets blown clean off. We arrived at the UN-run Bet Lahir primary school, which took direct hits on Saturday morning, the very last day of the war. 1,891 refugees were sheltering here. The Israeli army knew this and had the coordinates. A worker here filmed on his mobile phone the aftermath of the first 2 white phosphorus shells to explode at 6:45 in the morning. As he was filming, another shell slammed into the school, this time an artillery round. It caused mayhem. Ambulances already on the scene, caught up in it all. 2 dead, 14 injured. You can see white phosphorus burning all over the playground. Another 2 bombs then exploded. 4 more were killed just outside. Bet Lahir was the 3rd UN school to be hit and an act condemned as outrageous by the UN Secretary General.
The school authorities have been gathering up some of the shrapnel and shell casings of what hit the school in the incident of the 17th of January. And this bit of wrecked metal here is, believe it or not, the remains of one of the 4 phosphorus bombs which exploded over the school, burning some of the children. This big thing here is either a tank shell or an artillery piece. This is what hit the balcony just up there, killing 2 small children and blowing the legs off their 19-year-old cousin. The Israeli army says that it hit schools because they had people firing. Is it possible that there were Hamas fighters shooting from inside this school?
Absolutely not, they said. There were definitely no militants in here. People were sleeping. There was no gunfire. The Israelis insisted to us tonight that they only fire at schools when they're fired at first. Mahmoud is 13. He was badly wounded by shrapnel at the start of the war. 3 weeks later, when the bombs hit the school, he suffered white phosphorus burns. I was washing my face upstairs, he told me. I'd just gone into the schoolroom when the shell hit the balcony. When I escaped outside, the phosphorus bomb exploded. It went on my arm.
There's quite a lot of this white phosphorus still lying around, and days after the bombs were dropped, it's still extremely dangerous. Watch what it does when it's exposed to oxygen.
In an instant, it's in flames. Amnesty International today began to investigate the Bet Lahir incident.
We see prima facie evidence that there have been war crime, and that is why we're calling for a thorough and independent investigation. It is not our job to jump to conclusion. We are saying that we're seeing prima facie evidence that is imperative that should be investigated.
Each side in this conflict has accused the other of war crimes. Hamas's rockets deliberately targeted civilians. Israel cast civilian dead as unfortunate collateral, but a horrified world's not convinced. At Gaza's UN HQ, the flag's at half-mast. 4 UN workers have been killed. Its huge warehouse hit by phosphorus bombs last week.
I'm not seeking, people to be preoccupied with what has happened to the UN. I want to know about accountability for those two little boys, 5 and 7 years of age, who are undisputably innocent. But there is undisputably innocent.
This is in the Bethlehem school.
Yeah, as they are dead. They're dead now.
As the people of Gaza pick through the wreckage, there's a growing clamour for independent investigators to start unpicking whether Israel really did do all it could to avoid civilian casualties. Johnathan Miller, Channel 4 News, Gaza.
Johnathan Miller there. Well, Israel's Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni said today, and I quote, "Israel had to carry out this operation. I am at peace with the fact that we did it." Asked about the civilian death toll, she described it as the product of circumstance. And she said again that she blamed Hamas for fighting within population centres.